Welcome, welcome, welcome. It is a Thursday, September 22nd. Welcome to Market Movers. We're getting right to the order book this afternoon because we have Captain Jack Andrews in studio. We'll have a great conversation with him about all sorts of things, sports betting exchanges, sports betting in general. We're going to pick his brain about Thursday Night Football and all kinds of things, also including live trading. And when you're live trading with the captain, it is Captain's Orders. How are you? Good afternoon, sir.
Dan, it's a pleasure to be here, man. In Studio S. Finally get to be here in Studio S.
The long-awaited journey to Studio S, our third show. We're super excited that you're here. We have so much to get to. But first of all, we want to thank you for joining. We do want to talk about, we have 5 baseball games going on right now. So we'll pod up our live updating portfolio here. This is our Sport Trade account. And as you can see on our screen, I'm up $68.50. I'll run through some of the positions I've got today, Jack, and then you can tell me if I need to start trading out or if I need to start doubling down. The Texas Rangers currently hosting the LA Angels. We're in for them to win. That score currently is up there somewhere. Texas is up. Oh, they're tied at 3. Texas was down 3-0. Now 3-3 in the bottom of the 6th. I have the Kansas City Royals outright to win. That sucker is winning me all kinds of money, up $43.75. I got that at $46.05, as you can see here on the live stream. They're currently up 3-1 in the bottom of the 7th. The Giants to win outright against the Colorado Rockies, and the Mariners -1.5 against the Athletics. That game in Oakland currently up $21. Well, it just shifted, up $21 with a sell price of $76.5. So we're off and running here, Jack.
Yeah, no, I'm looking at the unabated live screen where I'm seeing some live odds from across the ecosystem of sports betting, and you're in good shape with a lot of these. The only one that I would be concerned about is that San Francisco. That game's in Coors Field.
Yeah,
anything can happen in Coors Field. It's a 1-0 game in the 4th. That's surprising in and of itself. But that's probably the other positions. I think that Kansas City position, I'm not gonna, I have enough superstition in me not to jinx you and say it's solid or anything like that. I think you're in good shape.
Well, the Royals up again 3-1 here at bottom of the 7th with a runner on. So I feel like that's doing pretty well. Giants, Rockies. The Rockies have 4 hits. The Giants have 1 run on 3 hits. So I think for right now, I'm holding on all of them. Now, we want to encourage trading on Sport Trade because that's what you can do here and nowhere else. But as it stands right now, my portfolio looking pretty thick, up $76. So I'm going to stay right there. We do, of course, have the captain in studio, so I would be remiss if we didn't talk about some more wide-ranging things in the world of sports betting. That's probably why a lot of you are tuned in to listen to the captain speak his mind. So, Jack, we'll start because obviously this is Market Movers. It's a Sport Trade broadcast here. Talk about your experience a little bit so far within the app in the first week and a half that we've been out.
Yeah, the experience has been great, Dan. The thing that I've noticed the most is how liquid the markets are. Like, I know I've talked to you guys for all along the process of coming to market, and I was promised, there's going to be great liquidity, Jack, great liquidity. And I was like, all right, we'll wait and see. And there has been.
And people on Twitter.
Well, like I think there's been at least $5,000 of liquidity in every single market. And on some of these games, there's multiple markets available, multiple strike prices. So that's been great. And, anytime there's that liquidity there and you can just press a button and the offer is accepted every time. The offer is always accepted. If you're betting into something that's at the market price, it's always accepted. And that's, for someone like me who is used to a circle wheel of death that spins around and then sometimes part of it gets accepted. That's really a breath of fresh air.
I mean, not only the liquid markets, right, but the size of the liquidity itself, right? Like we've had certain trades that have been 90 contracts where if you were to extrapolate that out, that's thousands and thousands of dollars. Have you been surprised at all by not only the amount of liquidity, but the speed of which you've been able to make your trades in and out, not just originally?
I'll say I'm not only impressed by the speed of the transaction, but I'm impressed with the speed of the market makers. I watch these games live. I have as fast a feed as I can possibly get. That's how you sometimes get an edge with in-game betting, is get a very fast score feed. And those market makers, they are ahead of that, or they are on pace with that. So it's, there's no chance to slip one over on them sometimes unfortunately. I'm just impressed by the speed of the platform. It is definitely a platform you can put there next to watching the game, and you know the probability right away of who's going to win or the probability of to win, and that's great as a bettor.
We've talked at length, I feel like, for the last year plus about who this app is for, right? Traders, of course, people who are savvy in the financial markets. We've talked a lot about American odds as opposed to applied probability. You have said to me before, you're like, I'm not sure if I would trade out of positions because I believe in the side of which I am betting on. But in your opinion, is this an app for both ecosystems? Not only for sharps who are able to get that liquidity down, but also for people who may look at American odds and say, that's what I'm used to, but this does represent something that is different that I can still enjoy.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm used to a buy and hold philosophy in my trading, whether it be in my stock portfolio or in my sports betting. I buy something because I like the odds of that winning outright. Sport trade allows me to take a more speculative position on things. I'll give you an example. Today, I was in the app and I noticed that the straddle on the Braves-Phillies game was incredibly low. It was, it was 43 and 57.5. So it was a very thin straddle. And what I was able to do is I was able to buy the Phillies at 43. And I have no intention of holding that one, Dan. Look, we're in the Philadelphia area. You see everything going on with the Phillies, and right now the bullpen is decimated. The team is a little bit dejected. They had a comeback win last night, but for the most part, I don't have a lot of faith in them. And tonight's pitcher is Ranger Suarez, who is not known for going deep in games. And so, as that being the fact, I don't want to hold on to this deep into the game. So I'm hoping the Phillies get out to at least a couple run lead early, or they keep it very close, and I can trade out of this at a profit at some point in the game. 43, I get a lot of upside there, and it's also not so much that I'm worried about investing too much. So hopefully I'm out at maybe 60 if they can get an early 1-0 lead.
So I pulled the market up so you could see it here on the live stream. As you mentioned, Phillies 43, Braves 57.5. Again, if you are ingrained in American odds, what does $43 mean? It means a 43% chance, roughly, of the Phillies winning the game. Presumably, if you are able to click a link and get onto the live stream, you can count to 100. So you understand that 43 out of 100 is 43% chance, $43. This is one that I'm going to be paying close attention to now that I know that you've got a position on it. So maybe you'll be able to update us later on in the evening during the unabated live stream how that trade has been going. Now, I don't want this entire conversation to be a commercial for Sport Trade. Obviously, I work here, but we have you, so we want to be able to tap into your knowledge base. So I'll ask one more question about Sport Trade, then we'll move on. How different is this from everything else that's in the market? This is a leading question, I know, but tell me.
No, and the biggest difference is this low friction environment that you operate in when you're on Sport Trade. In other words, you're able to get in and out of a position, and you know you're getting the market price, and you know you're paying a 2% commission on a win. But at the same time, if you factor that in, that's far better than anything you're offered elsewhere. Basically, the cash out option for sportsbooks is all or nothing. That's the first problem with it. And usually at about a 50% equity. So in other words, you're getting 50 cents on the dollar of what you deserve to get for that position. In Sport Trade, with it's such a low margin, you're getting basically 99% equity minus your 2% commission. So let's call it 97%. But you're getting 97%, and you control how much of that position you want to get out of. If you just want to take a little bit off the table. Tonight with this Phillies thing, I might take a little bit each inning, kind of trailing stop, I guess you could call that. And that's the way I'm going to trade out of it. Hopefully I'm not tipping off the market makers, then now they're going to know that I'm...
Yeah.
But that's my approach.
The daily time limit on the lights have gone off. If you've watched Market Makers, we're going to get a new switch in here at some point. You are now in the content business. How are you finding it?
I have a lot of respect for you, Dan.
Welcome to the content business. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's tough. It's tough to just continually be putting out new stuff. Now, do I have a monster list of things that I could talk about related to sports betting? Absolutely. And I don't think I'll ever run out of those things. It's the trouble of every day starting fresh of going through the process of getting new content out there, whether it be video. I like to do video because I feel like that's more engaging. I like to do live streams because I feel like you get feedback from the viewers and you keep it very dynamic. But it's a monster to feed every day, and I have a lot of respect for people that do it.
That's actually literally what we used to call it when I was in television, was every day the monster opens its mouth, and every night it closes for like 2 hours, and then you have to move on. We are in what I consider the betting information age, in my opinion. There's never been more information available, which is a good thing, but it could also be a bad thing, right? And it's sort of incumbent on the individual sports bettor to sort of have to filter out, what's good and what's bad. From your perspective, having been in it for so much longer, and look, I've been in the sports betting space for like maybe 2 years. For someone who has been in it for so much longer, how have you seen this change and shape?
The bar is very low right now in terms of what passing as good sports betting content, even as passable sports betting content. I've talked to you a few times when we've met up in social situations, and I've kind of given you some tips in what I say is, if they say this, bail. Like
and hey, look, it's much appreciated. I think if you watch this, I don't position myself as any sort of expert, right? So, and I think it would be ridiculous to do that. So I've always appreciated it.
Yeah. So, like, for instance, the whole trend issue. Like, if somebody gives you a trend, you got to first look at that and say, well, what's the context of this trend? Does this trend span through multiple years? In the NFL, trends often span multiple years. There's only 17 games in a season. So there's a lot of opportunity for them to say, look, this trend is 92% over the last 8 years. But it wasn't the same players over that time. And if it's a trend that's built on a narrative of like teams getting up for a rival game of a team that knocked them out of the playoffs the year before, there's largely a huge turnover in personnel on sports teams, and it's not the same people, and that's not as much motivation as you think it is. And then the other one is the old, this play is 9-2 over the last 11 games. Well, you can guarantee it's 9-3, maybe 9-4 over the last 12 or 13. There's a reason they've chosen this arbitrary
they're cutting
selection.
And shaving it to fit the narrative.
Fit the narrative. Yeah. And that in the modeling world, that's called overfitting. You're overfitting something to fit into your narrative of how you want it to appear to everyone else.
It's such an interesting concept, right? Because so much of what we see out there in hashtag gambling Twitter is just that. I can remember just last week I saw a stat from a sportsbook that posted something about overs hitting since 1989. I was born in 1989, and I can assure you nobody who was playing then is playing now. So you just see so many of those things that are not attributable to what actually is going on in the game. I bring all this up because we were just talking before the live stream about a stat that is actually, to me, somewhat meaningful. Right? Of course, Thursday Night Football, we have the Browns going up against the Steelers, a game obviously you could trade on Sport Trade. We're going to get into that later in the live stream. But here are actually some trends that are specific to Browns head coach Kevin Stefanski. 7-15 as a favorite against the spread, 1-11 against the AFC North, 0-7 as a favorite in the AFC North, and 0-4 against Mike Tomlin, a coach that he sees twice a year. So in that instance, would you say that is specific enough to be applicable?
So my first reaction to you was, well, let's look at some of these Browns teams over the past couple of years that he's had to field. They've had a lot of injury, bad luck. Injuries are largely a luck thing, a variance thing. He's had a lot of injury luck that has gone against him, especially in those Steelers games. So I'm not putting as much weight onto the Mike Tomlin part. I'm not putting as much weight into the 1-11 in the division. 0-7 as a favorite in the division, that's something where you say maybe the market has overvalued them in divisional games. That's key. And then as a favorite, that I can see just because over the past couple of years, Cleveland Browns have always been a public darling in this team. This is the year they break through.
That's true. That's true.
I think they get a lot of early season value that then dissipates over time. Because you remember before that, if we go back a few more years, that was the 0-16 Browns, and we've always been waiting for them to take the next step to get back to competitive. So look, I think that actually held a little bit more weight than I was expecting. That stat actually came from Matt Friedman, who I respect. He's usually very good with picking out things that actually have signal rather than noise.
Thank you to Matt for tweeting that out. We have the game graphic up here on Sport Trade. The money line to win: the Steelers at $35.50, the Browns at $65.50. If you're looking at the spread, the most popular strike here, plus 3.5 for the Steelers at $49, the Browns at minus 3.5 at $52. The over/under currently, I believe, at 39.5. I might have to update my graphic here, unless you've got more up-to-date information, Jack.
It's about on Sport Trade, 39.5.
Okay.
But it's 38 is the market line.
I see. Well, currently, again, I might have to update this graphic, but $46.50 to the over, $54.50 to the under there. We're going to run back to Thursday Night Football, but I do want to ask about pricing. Right. You have now built a business in Unabated that is based on educating the bettor, educating the consumer, and that has a heavy emphasis on pricing. Why do you feel like that was the most important thing?
This is a numbers game. You know, sports betting is really a numbers game. People like to think that it's all about picking winners, and if you go about trying to
and tweeting about it,
even when you don't maybe actually have it. But the point being is, if you go through your sports betting journey and all you think is you need to pick winners, you're going to be sorely disappointed. You can't beat this market that way. You need to beat it as if it was a market, as if the prices are dynamic, as if sometimes there is a market maker's price that is strong, and sometimes there's a market taker's price of weakness. And a lot of the sports books that are in the U.S. these days are fairly weak. They have not put in the time and effort to be a very strong, sharp sports book. And so they're a little bit weak, and you can pick off prices by looking at sharper books and picking it off at more recreational books.
So take me through the screen. We're looking at the Unabated screen right now. I see a lot of yellow. What's the yellow indicate?
So the yellow flashes up anytime a line has changed and then fades back down into that bronze color. So if you were to walk away from your screen and come back, you go, oh, what happened while I was gone? Oh, these lines all moved. I can look into that. And you can click on any of those lines and get a line history of what the line move was, when it happened, and kind of signal it that way. But you can also see that those colors kind of have a little bit of a pattern in terms of they happen on the same game across multiple sports books, multiple columns there. And that's a sign that somebody moved and then the rest of the world moved behind it. Now, on the left part of your screen are all sharper sports books. Circa out in Vegas, Pinnacle Offshore, Bookmaker Offshore, Deck Prism, which is a B2B provider that powers a lot of sharp sports books. And so they often have the ability to kind of shape the prices. And when they move, the rest of the market moves, and not always in real time. Sometimes the market lags behind. So you can use the sharp market makers to find when the lines are going to move and where they're going to move on the softer books.
So I'm looking on the left here, and I see hold percentages, right? Mm-hmm. And there are varying degrees of different percentages. What are we looking at here? What should we be keying in on if you want to sign up for Unabated?
So this is the synthetic hold, and this is taken from, there's a book out called The Logic of Sports Betting by Ed Miller and Matt Davidow. It's really excellent reading for anyone interested in sports betting. And they came up with this theory of synthetic hold, in which the best possible line on either side creates a theoretical hold for the sportsbook. And when I say hold, that is the amount the sportsbook is going to hold if both people bet into it, if both sides get bet into it. Now, in a typical sportsbook that's minus 110 on either side, that theoretical hold is about 4.5% for the sportsbook. And if that was the case here, we would show 4.5%. However, when you start to line shop, you can come up with better prices at various sportsbooks that lower that synthetic hold. So the best line at Sportsbook A and the best line on the other side of that game at Sportsbook B may create a synthetic hold of maybe just 0.5%. And you want to bet into situations like that, whether you want one side or the other, because that gives the bookmaker less margin of error to win against you. In other words, they have less of a cushion, and it's easier for you to win long-term betting into these thinner margins. And there are times when the best line at one book and the best line at another book creates an arbitrage opportunity. We highlight the synthetic hold, and we show it as the negative number. That's a negative hold for the sports book. And those are times where you can definitely profit if you were to bet both sides, or you figure out which of these two is the wrong number, who's hanging the wrong price. You do that, you grind it out. We got guys that just sit on the screen all day long. They look for the green. They figure out which side is the bad side. They bet that side, and they're doing quite well for themselves.
It's a cheat sheet.
Yes, it absolutely is.
Right? It's a betting cheat sheet. Another way that you can sort of not cheat the system, but at least profit off of what Sporttrade has to offer is another thing that is always talked about on gambling Twitter, and that's closing line value. One of these trends, not even a trend, one of the metrics that you can gauge whether or not you're making good bets. It's great to have it elsewhere. On Sporttrade, you can actually benefit off of it. For example, we've seen some pretty decent line movement this week in the NFL markets. Monday, specifically, the Dallas Cowboys were trading at $45 to beat the New York Giants, who were trading at $56. That number has now moved to Thursday afternoon to the Cowboys, who are now trading at $50 and the Giants at $51. So what does all that mean? If you had purchased the Dallas Cowboys at $45 on Monday, they're now worth $50. You have made $5 per contract on that trade. And it's not just that game as well. The Atlanta Falcons, who we can all agree, terrible. The Seattle Seahawks, also terrible. That game opened the week 46-5 to Atlanta, 54-5 to Seattle. Atlanta is actually now the favorite now at $51 per contract, up $4.50. Explain to me, Jack, the process of getting positive CLV, right? Getting that closing line value and not winning. But what does that mean as opposed to now on a platform like Sporttrade and an exchange where you can actually make money off of it?
So for years, bettors, sharp bettors have relied on CLV, closing line value. And that's very simple to understand is the bet you made, where did the line close at? Because if markets tend towards efficiency, then the most efficient price is the closing line when the game started. That's the most efficient price. And you measure yourself against that. And you say, well, what happens in the bet is almost irrelevant. It's a small sample size to take any kind of theory off of. And so you look at the closing line value and you say, well, I got 3% of closing line value. That's pretty good. The market moved in my direction 3%. Win or lose, that's a positive force. Because the market itself, Dan, is actually the smartest bettor in the world. In other words, it's the market is kind of the hive mind of all the sharp bettors in the world that are shaping these numbers. It's not the public money that shapes the numbers. It's the sharp money. And the sharp money has shaped this number and hammered it into place. And if you were able to beat that number, have a better price than the closing line, you have that closing line value. Now, for years, though, detractors or even just pundits have said, but closing line value won't buy you anything in real life because it's all theoretical. In fact, my friend Dave Sharapan likes to post a picture of a trash can that from the city of Las Vegas, which is stamped with CLV. and he's like, here's where you can put all your CLV, and it's a giant trash can. Because for years, that's what bettors had to do. They said, well, I had great CLV, but I couldn't realize it. Well, with something like Sporttrade, where you have almost a frictionless environment to get out of your bet, and even just get out of part of your bet, you can cash out your CLV. You can actually turn around, and if you bought at 45 and it's now at 50, you can cash out, take your $5 per contract. Maybe you had 10, maybe you had 100 contracts, and take that value. That's your real value. Now, you no longer have a sweat on the game, but conversely, what you can do is you can just cash out some of it. Cash out maybe 5 contracts and keep the rest riding on the game and decide what to do with it then. So you can take some money off the table, and you're doing so both frictionlessly as well as at that low 2% commission. And honestly, it's I think that's something that bettors have wanted to do. They just didn't realize they actually had the ability to do that now.
You can do that on Sporttrade. We have a comment from Maine Coast 7. I thought Jack lived in Ohio. Good combo between Sporttrade and Unabated. We may have more to talk about in that regard coming up later tonight on Unabated's live stream, which our CEO, Alex Kane, will be on. We'll wrap up today, Jack, with Thursday Night Football. We want to get your thoughts on Browns versus Steelers and maybe some actionable thoughts here. We may be making some trades. We'll quickly update how our baseball trades are doing here. Right now, the portfolio is, again, doing well. The portfolio Hive up $88. Rangers, Royals, Giants, and Mariners minus 1.5, all up right now. The most significant of our gains. The Royals to beat the Twins up to 93.5. Currently, they're up 3-1 here in the
bottom of the eighth.
Bottom of the eighth. Thank you very much. We started at 46.5. We're now up to 93 is our sale price. So we are cooking with gas on our baseball bets in the afternoon, baseball trades rather, in the afternoon. Let's turn our attention to Thursday Night Football. Again, I'll pull the graphic up. Steelers and Browns. How are you sizing this one up, Jack?
So I've been looking at the total on this one, and this is a weather game. There is about a 22-mile-an-hour northwesterly wind blowing in Cleveland. The stadium is on
I know
the
some
water.
people at CBS3 if you want to get a meteorology
Was that
contract.
good or not? So anyway, but when you look at something that's weather related, you have to say, well, will this impact the game? And a crosswind, which this would be coming in from the northwest, does have an impact on a football game. It makes throwing a little harder. But that doesn't always mean that it is the effect you think it is. These aren't played in open fields. These are played in large, constructed stadiums where the wind can sometimes swirl and act differently than you think it would. And so this total has gone from 41 down to about 38. It won't go past 37. 37 is enough of a key number in totals that it won't go past 37, even if there's public pressure tonight when they're watching the pregame show and everyone rushes to bet the under because they're seeing all the wind in the pregame and kicks going sideways. Here's how I'm going to play it, though, Dan. I am not going to get in at this at 38, the line, the total number. I am going to wait till game time. I'm going to watch the first quarter, and I'm going to see how the first quarter plays out. Are these teams adjusting for the wind in their game plan? Does that mean they're running more? Does that mean they're throwing shorter passes? That'll sort of take into account. Can I get away with somebody getting a cheap touchdown early and maybe jumping that total up a little higher? And maybe I can grab the under 41.5 if it's an early enough touchdown and moves it 4 points. So that's how I'm going to approach it. I'll make a move in the first quarter at some point based on what I'm seeing on the game.
It's so difficult to not have an emotional reaction when you see early scores or anything like that as it pertains to the total. So how do you make sure? I mean, you're a very analytical, numbers-based mind, so I feel like that's the answer to my question. But regardless, I'm going to ask it. How do you make sure that you are detaching yourself from that emotion when you are looking at totals?
I think you never really get fully unbiased in your view of things. And that's just what it is. That's just the world we live in. And I'm sure the best of us that do this can get fully unbiased in their approach. But for me, I try to take it as if like this is a numbers game and I am looking for the number that I want to get. And it's not so much the bets you make, it's the bets you don't make that is where you actually profit.
Just like shots, right?
Yes. I guess that.
Who said that?
True.
Michael
It's
Scott said that.
Right, you're right.
Yeah.
But the point being is, look, the sports book has a lot of surface area to defend against. If you pick your places where you're going to find your value, you can profit greatly.
Jack, this has been great. We're so appreciative that you came in today and happy to say this is not the last time you're going to see Captain Jack on Market Movers. Thank you so much. And like I said, Unabated will have a live stream coming up tonight at 7 o'clock. Our CEO, Alex Kane, will be a part of that, so make sure you watch that as well. This has been Market Movers on a Thursday. We will not be back tomorrow. We're off on Friday, but we will be right back here on Monday with ESPN's Anita Marks. Thanks, everybody.